here's the backstory, and I'll try to be succinct. So when I first applied to be a practitioner, before I ever went to any type of training at all, I said, you know what, I want this to be free because I don't want to stand in anybody's way to learn the Creighton model system. I want there to be no barriers. And then I went to EP1 and then I spent my first 3 days in 12-hour plus classes. And then I took my first exam and I called my husband up and I said, someone's going to pay for this. This is not a nothing thing. This is a big deal. And he, of course, was all for that. He was very much okay with that. And so when I was an intern, I basically covered my costs. So I charged what I felt I needed to do was cover my costs. The parishes I was working for, the archdiocese that I'm in, as well as my husband said, just don't cost us any money. You can do this, just don't cost the church any money, don't cost the family any money. So I covered my bases with that. Once I became certified, I actually did a rate increase of about 20% more. And I did that for about 5 years. And my center kept growing and growing and growing. It was wonderful. And what happened was at about 2015, towards the end of 2015, I was starting to become very discontented. I felt very undervalued. I mean, I was not feeling that what I was doing was being appreciated. And the realization came that they're not going to appreciate me because they don't know. They don't know what to charge a practitioner. They don't know what to pay me. Or not charge, but pay a practitioner. So I talked about it and prayed about it. And in the beginning of 2016, I started articulating to some very wise people, I'd like to raise my rates. Everybody was for it, 100%. They knew the value of what I did. And also just taking a look at, the more clients you have, the more work you have outside of the follow-up. So the follow-up time for me, I book an hour and a half for every follow-up. Sometimes we take that long, sometimes we don't. Sometimes a 45-minute, that's wonderful. But I book my scheduling for an hour and a half. But it's the paperwork afterwards. It's someone needs a new chart, so I got to pull their file, look at their instructions. They need yellow stamps, get their address. It's not just a nothing. People ask me questions on email all the time. Sometimes the answer is very easy, but I've got to stop and really carefully consider how I respond. Sometimes it's very easy, sometimes it takes more effort. And it really does continue education. So the more clients I got, the more time it was taking for me to do my job, which makes sense, actually. However, I was becoming overwhelmed in that case. My business, I do run mine. I'm a DBA, small business owner, sole proprietor for my center. And my center is registered in my county as a business. And it was just taking up more time and I was not feeling like I was getting the benefit out of it. So I was like, well, what can I do? I could stop and get another job, which a lot of practitioners do, but I really love what I do. And I love what and I know that doesn't help anybody else if I stop because it's one less practitioner. So I sat down and I said, all right, I want to do a 50% increase. And there were some practitioners in our world that were phenomenal. They were like, absolutely, you charge that much. That's what you deserve. And da, da, da. So that was very helpful as well. I do charge more than some people in my area, but I can tell you that it has added, it meant two things. It meant two opportunities for me. It meant that as an intelligent, well-educated woman, as all practitioners are, unless they're intelligent, well-educated men. But I could go out and get a job and get money for my family in a lot of different ways, but I wanted to do this. So we had to say, what is it going to cost? What's the cost for me to be able to keep doing this at home? And we came up with that number. I made the change. It took me about 10 months of saying I wanted to make the change to when I actually hard docked and said, this is when we are going to make this change. I made that change in October of 2016. I was terrified, absolutely terrified that I would lose clients and they wouldn't learn the system, or I would lose clients and I would make no money and not be able to be a practitioner anymore. No one cared. Absolutely no one cared. Everybody paid for it. No one, and to this date, I do offer, I say, if you can't afford our fees, please let me know and we'll work something out. I do require that everybody pay something, even if it's just a tiny amount, because it adds value to it. But I can tell you right now, because I like to keep up with these numbers. I'm a businesswoman at heart. I like 98% or more of my clients pay my fees without ever asking any questions. And so that is something that has been very successful. I haven't necessarily grown at a faster rate or a slower rate, but I am now making 50% more at a continual rate. So it's a 50% more increase. And it feels really good. And the first time someone paid for that new rate, I felt like, yes, I am getting what I need to get, and I felt good. I felt that I could serve my clients better because I wasn't going to be wondering if I needed to be doing other work. I mean, I do have a responsibility to my family to bring in some money, and I don't carry the burden of that. My husband does, but I have responsibility of it. Like I said, all of us are well-educated, highly motivated people if you're a practitioner. So I could go out and get a job doing something else and making good money. All of us probably could, but I wanted to keep doing this. So I had to find out what is fair to my family and yet still allows me to pursue this career. And so that's what I did. And when I first got that first PayPal thing came in and said they paid for it, I was like, yeah, this is good. I can do this. I can meet my needs to do my own personal desire to do this work and the financial needs that my family needs. Also, I did talk to a couple practitioners who I knew for various reasons were making it work, were like supporting themselves or they were doing a very good job with that financially. And so I asked them. I also reached out to people who were business people who, they knew what I did. Maybe they were clients of mine. Maybe they were just associates of mine that I knew, but they were actually in the business world. And I was like, what do you think? And they were very, very excited they knew what I did. They knew the value of the work that Creighton model practitioners do. And they understood also that fear of taking that next step, but they were business people. They had they own businesses not associated with what we do. And they were like, absolutely, no one is going to pay you what you're worth until you ask them to. No one's going to be, hey, can I pay you more? And they just said, right, go ahead and do it. And so they talked to me and they were very encouraging. And they said, you can always step your prices back if you want to, if it doesn't work out, but they were very good. Some of the advice I got was, especially from one of the practitioners, was take what it would cost at my new rates for a year. So, 8 follow-ups time the new rate, and then divide that by 12. And what does that break down per month? And then ask yourself, what do you pay that equals that or less? And it was very humbling to find out that even at my increased rates, it was still, when you think about what people pay for things, hair color, hairstyles, I've got kids in bands, there's private lessons that I pay for. That's more a month than what people would pay for me per month. So it really helps it put it in perspective. I mean, I don't think of it as that, but it is considered a luxury item. Practitioner, you having a practitioner, because it doesn't feed the family, it doesn't put a house over in that family, but it is, it's one of those things that you need to know. And when I looked at what my new rates would cost per month, I was like, oh yeah, people can afford me. And it was that was that. And it's what I needed to do for the right or left side of the brain that needed to adjust to that. This is my business. This is my job. So, and that's something that I'm really trying to convince my clients get that 100% as individual clients. They see this as my profession. I present it very professionally. You can see how I'm set up back here. If they're on Skype, they're seeing the same thing back here. If not, they're in my home office. We were able to convert a living room into a very nice home office for me. But it's really kind of the church, getting the church to understand that I'm a professional and not just a volunteer. But I do this is my job. So I will have anywhere between 20 and 30 appointments a month. Okay. And so that would, if we do that forward. So about 6 to 8 follow-ups or introductory sessions a week. And that fits, so it's, as far as that goes, if you just look at follow-up time, it's about part-time. When you start doing all the paperwork that comes with that and everything else, it runs probably a good 30 hours a week that I devote to my job. And it is my job. And with the increase in rates, not only was I able to meet my family's financial need from me as a highly intelligent, highly educated woman and a mother, and our oldest is going off to college and our youngest is going into kindergarten. So I was kind of coming into a place where I would have more time to work and I would have more bills. So kind of those two things. But not only was I able to meet that, but I'm very, very passionate about making our work professional. Mm-hmm. And we are professionals. We're trained to be professionals. And I know that every single practitioner is a professional, but I want us to be on equal footing with every other profession that's out there. So with the increased fees, I'm also able to do a lot more of advertisement. We call it sponsorship, so I can tax write-off, but it's the sponsorship. And I actually sponsor about half the year, 6 to 9 months of the year, depending on my year. I sponsor a radio spot on a Catholic radio station. So they run a 30-second sponsor message for me once a day, and I do it and everything else. So we're getting it out there, which when other people are listening to that, oh, this is a job. And I say my center's name and everything else. I also sponsor kids activities. We have 4 kids, so yeah, I'll give you a couple $100 for my name to be on the back of a t-shirt. And so now my name is right next to the other businesses, or my center's name is right next to the other businesses. Same thing with parish events. Yes, I will underwrite something for, it's various amounts and everything else, and there's my name, my center's name, Houston Family Fertility, next to a realtor's name or another business name or something like that. So so my increasing rates have allowed me to both meet my family's needs as well as my desire to push this forward on equal footing as a profession. I would say 80% of my clients are referrals, either from my current clients. I'm up to almost 200. I'm at 192, 193 clients, of which I have a really nice retention rate. I am managing about 110 of them at any given time. So I have a very high retention rate. And I work very hard at that. That's something that, I really want to have that connection with them. And so but when you have that many active clients, you get the emails, phone calls, so-and-so referred me to you, so-and-so referred to you. Another good chunk of that, maybe 15% of the remaining, comes from, we do have 4 OBGYNs in the Houston area. The way they do it, if someone comes to them that doesn't have a practitioner, they simply give them a list of the practitioners in the area. So they don't say, go see Nora, they say, here are the practitioners. And so I pick up, probably an even amount as everybody else does from that. The church itself in the Houston area is lukewarm towards the Creighton model system. We're working on it. I still have a relationship with them, so that's fine. But I would say very few of my couples are engaged couples. And unfortunately, right now in the Archdiocese, that's where they put any kind of NFP. They put it only with engaged couples. We're still working to get it to understand this is a lifelong thing. And I do have some pockets here with certain people that happen to be, I have some youth ministers at various parishes that will recommend their daughters to me. Like if parents come in and say, they want to put my daughter on the birth control pill, what do you want to know? They will pass that information on. I have some deacons I can sometimes get to, and if people come in with issues, they'll refer them to me. But unfortunately, right now in the Archdiocese, it's still seen very much as that one corner spot of marriage prep. And so once a couple is married, the church doesn't really inform them much about what we do. The first thing that I do, and this is probably actually what I do, it's the overarching. Hospitality is my #1 thing. And by that I mean, we're going to build a relationship. I'm going to welcome you in. I'm not going to bend over backwards and do whatever you need me to do. I'm still a practitioner and I'm in charge of the follow-up. But I'm able to work from home. So I allow pretty good flexibility when it comes to cancellation. Even that, people aren't canceling that much. I don't do anything automated. So when I send a reminder email, it says, this is your friendly reminder for our follow-up at this day, at this time. Please remember to send this and this. And some of that's individualized. Most of it just says update a picture of your chart or bring your chart and stamps. But always not one thing, automated. And so that way, if they need to reschedule, then then we have a conversation. Then it's like, well, I need to reschedule, Nora, or I don't think I can do this anymore because of this, this, and this. And now we've had a conversation. And now I can come back and go, okay, well, if that's your concern, we can still do it this way, or we can do it that way. And that allows me, as opposed to it being an automated thing where it gets sent off or people can come in on a website and cancel an appointment. I want them to be actually talking to me when they cancel. If it's email, that's probably that. And I always spend time, every follow-up, which is why I book an hour and a half for a follow-up. We're going to talk about their life. We're going to say, how are the kids doing? What's going on? That's twofold. That's me. That's my personality. I want to know. I love people. I want to know. But also, if they're going through stress, I need to know about that when we're doing the follow-up. It helps me say, okay, like for instance, we'll talk and they're like, oh, well, I had the flu for a week and a half. So when we're doing the follow-up, I'm like, okay, so where was that week and a half on your chart? So we know, were you able to make observations? Or are we not really getting into, we're going to spend time talking about their life a little bit during each follow-up. And so, but that's what we call hospitality down here in Houston. It's more work. It is more work. Trust me, every time I sit down to type the same exact thing, it goes through my head. Should I just do this? And I'm like, no, because it doesn't happen often, but there are those times when I've unwittingly opened up a dialogue that I didn't see coming. And then I was able to bring them back. They thought they couldn't do something. Even if it's, Nora, we can't do it. We have to stop because we can't afford it. Then I can come back and say, okay, well, what can we afford? What's going on? can you catch me later? And we can talk about it, and it keeps them, it doesn't catch 100%, but it does that. Also, I answer the phone when it rings. It's me. It's going to be me. It's that kind of a thing. I let them do that. And I'm very Johnny on the spot because this is my job. So if someone calls and I can't answer the phone, I will call them back that day. And if someone sends an email, and they give me their phone number, I prefer to call them. I will if they don't. Sometimes I get it through the thing and they don't give me any kind of context. I just have to respond via email. But I want to talk to them because, and I keep open in my schedule opportunities for people to reschedule, as well as I can take a client. I work Monday through Thursday. And so unless they're contacting me on Thursday night, I can usually squeeze them in for an introductory session. And so and that's, again, that goes back to my own personality. When I find something I want to do, I want to do it now. And so I want to, so I'm like, okay, absolutely. We can get started right away. Right. And that is something a lot of them are not prepared for. And I just keep that well. And so if they're like, hey, Nora, my kid has this thing going on, or my kid's got sick, can I reschedule? I allow for that. Now I do say, especially in those first 4 follow-ups, we need to get as close to that mark as we can. And so I'm lenient, but not as lenient as I may think I am. I know that, I still keep us on schedule, but if we need to move it to the next day, I keep open enough appointments to be able to do that usually. Definitely spending time talking about them, again, as a chance to A, get to know them, and B, find out what's going on. And who doesn't love to talk about themselves? I mean, that's like my favorite topic ever. And so, and then the other one is flexibility, to where it's flexible, but within reason. Flexible. I'm not necessarily breakable. I'm flexible. I mean, working with almost 200 women, I'm going to have some things, and absolutely, but I am also a mom of 4 and a pretty stubborn woman myself. So I will just say, and I've had some clients leave because well, you just can't work with me. Or I had some clients, we don't meet on the weekends. And I was like, no, but there are practitioners that do. So I can give you the information of who they are, or I can send you in the direction. I'm not always 100% sure who's working what. So that is also that comes with the gift of experience. That comes with having almost 200 clients, of going, you know what, most people can meet when I need to meet. And that's the other thing. My appointments are afternoon and evenings. So I meet 12:30 at the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 o'clock, 7:30, and my final appointment starts at 9 o'clock at night. And I think that really helps, because there's a lot of people who, they might live, I live in Houston, so they may or may not live close, but they can put their kids to bed. They don't have to get a babysitter. The husband's home from work. Their day is slowed down, and they can sit down and focus with me. So I think maybe the flexibility of my timing as well as my rescheduling. But again, no, I really don't. I'm not gonna have any more abuse than anybody else, because that's an individual. That's not a group. And that's the other thing is that I did have to learn. My personality is such, it wasn't hard for me to learn, but I did have to kind of figure out what that meant. Was that, yes, I don't mind rescheduling ever if it's within my time frame. That's a time that my family knows I have blocked off for work, and I don't mix the two. My children are not even in the office right now. They're somewhere else, and they know not to come in. Now, I do have a 10-foot wall of glass that is doors and windows that goes into the foyer of our house. So I'm not saying that there aren't kids at the windows sometime trying to get my attention, but they do know better. Yeah. So I say, this is my work time. And so that when I step out of the office, it's in my home, and it really is just used for my office. When I step out, I'm not at work. So my family knows that when mommy is not in her office, and my husband knows as well, that's fine. So I can be if I only have a 7:30 one night, I can be hanging out with my family and everything else. But let's say I have a 6, 7:30, and 9, which is what tomorrow looks like for me. We'll have dinner at 5 o'clock, because I can do that. We'll sit together, and about 5:45, I'll get up, make sure I'm ready to go, and walk across and go to work. And so it allows me, and if someone has to cancel at the last minute, I'm still with my family. So if we have to move it to the next day, that's fine. And my clients sometimes it's me. Again, because I have my set work hours, I'm very rarely do I have to cancel or reschedule. I never have to cancel to reschedule, but my kids get sick. I get sick, things come up, some school pulls something at the last minute, and my clients are always very understanding about that as well. So it's a relationship that we develop between both of them. The first step I would say would be to, sit down and say, what do you need? what financially do you need? I mean, the work that we do is priceless, but our mortgage is a price and our bills have a price. So we don't get to do them. And what do we do? That number is going to look different for every single practitioner. It's going to look different for a lot of reasons, but it's going to look different. So what is the number? And you may have to adjust that number to be realistic. I mean, we'd all love to, bill everybody $1,000 a follow-up. Not going to happen. So it might, I guess. Maybe I should try that. But the reality is that what is the number? And then, like I said, the best thing that I did ever was with a practitioner, a fellow practitioner who, just to keep her safe, I won't name her, but she's wonderful. She said, take what your new amount would be, what you want to charge, multiply it by 8. That's how many follow-ups are going to go into a year. Yes, occasionally we need to throw another one in there, but I take a lot of time. I follow-ups. It's rare that even if we do have another one, we usually can adjust to fit 8 into a year. So let's say we have to throw a 6th one in there early. We'll go 3 months from that, and it still bumps out to a year. It's about 8 follow-ups in a year, exactly about 8 follows. So what is that? And divide that by 12. And then sit back and say, what do people in my community, the community I would be serving, what do they pay for that? So let's just make up a number, and this is just a fun number to work with. Let's say that you comes up to $50 a month, so $600 a year, which would come to $75 a follow-up, and that would break down 75 times 8 is 600. Divide that by 12, that's $50 a month. So that's just a number I'm making up right now. Then what do you have then? You have, what can you get for $50 a month? I mean, that really made it better doing my math. They realized that, wait a minute, I pay $80 a month for private lessons for one kid, and I have 2 kids taking them. And I pay this much, I don't have cable, but I know cable's a lot of money. I don't know how much it is, but I know it's more than $50 a month.
Right, probably.
Yeah, I don't know. What can you get for the amount that you're asking for? And then we already know what we're doing is phenomenal. The other thing, so I would say, A, find out what you need. B, what does that really look like? Okay. As far as how's that compared to other services in your neighborhood, or your area, your community you serve. And the third one is, and I just had it. The realization that whether we agree with this principle or not, people will value what you tell them to value. And if I say that my services are worth this much, then I'm going to tell them how much to value them. And people do honestly believe the more you pay for something, the more value you're getting. Now, that doesn't mean that people I work for free don't get the same value. It's just, that's how we all do that. We all assume more money means greater value. It's not always the truth, but in our case, it might actually be the truth. We're definitely going to provide. So those 3 things: know what you need, really see how that breaks down over the course of a year for your client, and then just accept the fact that when we put a dollar amount on something, that's telling the other person how much it's worth. It's all about the balance. It's obviously, I'd love to pay, what the work we do is phenomenal. And now I'm a great practitioner, but I'm sure everybody else is a great practitioner too. And the work we do is phenomenal, and they can't put a price on it. But like I said, other things have prices on them that I have to pay for. So we're going to put a price on it. And I've never turned anyone away, and I don't think any practitioner has, from the inability to pay. Most of us will work with people. Have people not followed me? Because I state very clearly on everything that I do how much it costs, because I like to know. I don't want to look for it. I'm not ashamed of how much I charge. This is how much I charge. And it always says, if you have any trouble, contact us and we'll work something out. Sure, I'm sure people have seen how much I charge and gone away. That is still their job. It is their responsibility to find out how it works for them. And I'm not the only practitioner out there. But I do know that it hasn't seemed to slow down the number of people coming to talk to me. People want to work with successful people. And if you come across as a very successful, I don't actually need you as a client practitioner because I've got other clients, all of a sudden they want to be your client.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating?
And so what we do is very professional. We're trained that way. And like I said, all of us, the majority of us have a bachelor's, if not a master's. And then we go ahead and do all this training. And then if you're certified, you continue to do training and go to class, all the stuff that we do. And it's wonderful and it's great. And we need to own it, is basically what it is that they won't believe us until we tell them. And once we tell them, because we are practitioners, we're highly persuasive, they will believe us. But it is a process, and it takes, but there are some really phenomenal both inside the field and outside the field support that I've had. I call them my wise counsels, and they are very wise because they will say the things I'm afraid to say, but it sounds much like it makes sense when they say it. And what I consider retention is 1 year or achieving, so they complete the 8 year or the 8th follow-up, or they were achieving a pregnancy, they were going for achieving a pregnancy and they conceived. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
Those two things.
Awesome. Yeah.
Because I'll have people who come to me and I get pregnant 7 months in, I still consider them, and I usually get them back.
Great.
I also meet with them. I say, we're going to meet. I can't do the every X number of months on the follow-up. Like the pregnancy follow-up is like month 5, month 8, or whatever. I just email them every month.
Okay.
Like,
okay.
how's it going? Do I need to know anything? And sometimes we talk, and then we meet in the 7th or the 8th, basically the 8th month, about 2 months before delivery, to talk about what happens next and when they're going to contact me. Awesome. So I prep them to follow through. Luckily, yes, I love to talk, but I also love to be in control. So those two things at least go very well hand in hand. And honestly, yeah, I don't exactly watch the clock. I think I just have I know when we need to get started. I will, and I will have a conversation, and it usually lasts 5, maybe 10 minutes, and that is, that's a 10-minute would be a very long one. And, but there are also, so that I'm like, okay. And then there is a point where I'm like, okay, we're going to stop. Okay. And so I'll say, okay, we're going to get started now. And this actually, the conversation usually takes place right before we start section 4. So maybe we've already talked about the baby, and we've, if there is a baby to talk about, we've done, I start with medications, use of alcohol, all of that. Is any of that changed and everything? And maybe we have to do section 12 if we're dealing with a newborn and we're nursing. But when we switch over to start doing section 4, which is basically, in my opinion, the start of the follow-up, that's where we start.
Okay.
Front and back and all that kind of stuff. Then that is whenever. So we've actually kind of already started it when we stop and pause and talk about what's going on.
Okay.
And when we hunker down and do that, then we get done. But
That's
yes, like
cool.
I said, luckily, I've trained myself to know about how long we can chat just naturally. Again, it probably runs close to 5 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer. And then I still am in control of the follow-up. So I will be like, all right, well, we can talk about that forever. So let's go ahead and get started on the follow-up.
Yeah.
And if I know someone has already told me they're short on time, or if someone says, hey, I've got this scheduling inflict, can we get it done? We can do it in 45 minutes. Yeah, no problem. And I will tell them, we just won't chit chat. We'll just get right to it. And they're fine. But I always wondered why nobody ever complained about the length of my follow-ups. And I came out of the one a couple of years ago and I said, why does nobody ever complain? It takes us an hour and a half sometimes. My husband's like, it's an hour and a half of focusing on them and their issues. They're not going to complain. So it's part of that service.